All right. Welcome to the Questionable Calls podcast. Clark, I am fired up today. It's about that time of year. Basketball is getting in full swing. I think I figured out my sports calendar, Clark. Late February, like right after, after the All-Star game, trade deadline, all of that. I start kind of paying attention to basketball. The games start mattering. Teams actually start playing like they care. And then we got March Madness in a few weeks, and then the Masters and the NBA playoffs. So this is leading into one of my favorite. We're a little bit outside of one of my favorite times of the year. So yeah, super excited. So I wanted to go over some. I have some NBA questions that I wanted to that we could talk about, and especially after Denver beat Boston the other night, and some of the way some of the teams are being talked about. So first off, what's your confidence level in the Celtics at this point? Right now, they're the betting favorite to win the championship. I'm getting, I'm starting to hear some, depending on who you talk to, there's varied reviews. Like, a lot of sports shows that we watch. The Celtics should win the title. Charles Barkley said the Celtics should win the title. If they don't, they've gagged it away. You've got, Bill Simmons is cautiously optimistic. He's worried about them, against Denver, but he still thinks they've got, maybe have the best team. And then Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer is basically like, no, I don't trust the Celtics. He's a Celtics fan. He's like, I don't trust the Celtics. The Bucks are still the best team in the East, which I thought was, I thought that was a bit far on the other end. But regardless, that's a take that's out there. So, where are you at with the Celtics? What's your confidence level as far as them winning the East and then winning the championship?
Um, I mean, I think you gotta have. I mean, you gotta have some level of confidence in it, right? I mean, because are they better than the bottom of the East? Like, yeah.
Of course.
Are they better? Are they better than like Philadelphia right now? Like, probably. I mean, we'll see if Embiid comes back, but probably Milwaukee has. They've won a lot of games, but I don't think they've necessarily looked really impressive. Their defense hasn't been as good. So, yeah, I can see why you'd have them as, if not the favorite, one of the two, maybe three teams that could win the East. So I get that, but I don't, we have to, it just seems we have to do this every NBA season. Like we did this a few years ago with the Suns, where we're like, oh, they're just blowing everybody away, and all these advanced metrics just show how good they are and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but you know, they got to do that in the playoffs. So it's just because the playoffs is totally different. So it's hard to. I understand that we just do this every year, but as far as the Celtics should be the betting favorites. Why? I understand. Again, that's Vegas. I understand they're going to have a different calculation about how they're going to do that, but I mean, Denver just won the championship. They lost like one player in the offseason. They basically bring back the same team. Jokic is still really, really good. He'll win another MVP. Like, we'll see the rest of the team, like the way they all play together, especially when it's crunch time and at the end of games. Why would they not be the favorites? And how are we forgetting all the issues that the Celtics had with their coach last year, and their offense at the end of games? I mean, it's still the same thing. We've seen that like this week. Um, and then there's been obviously criticism of Jason Tatum at the end of games and how he's not very good in those critical moments at the end of games. So, yeah, I mean, they should make the finals at the very least. I'm not necessarily ready to say them losing in the finals is a failure, because getting to the finals is difficult enough, and I don't know that they can necessarily beat Denver. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like we have to do this every year in every sport seemingly, where we got to well, this team during the regular season, they're clearly they're going to win the whole thing, and maybe they will, but I just feel like people need to give more credit to Denver. They just seem to not. Denver just reminds me of the Spurs when they were winning championships. Like, they just do stuff the right way and they're just quiet about it and they're not, it's not a big deal. And it's like, okay, you guys can focus on other teams, but I'm going to stay with Denver.
Yeah, in that game, I mean, you think you've got them, and it's one of those games where Denver wins it, but Boston can use all of these arguments. Well, we shot really badly from three. We're not going to do that all the time, and Tatum's not going to play that badly all the time, and you can use. It's kind of like I'm saying excuses because I look. That's how I look at it. Those are legitimate arguments. I think as far as the Celtics go, well, the argument that I'm hearing from Celtics fans is, well, they're different than last year. Last year's team was different. They don't have Marcus Smart anymore, and whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, I get what you're saying, but your best two players are still the same two guys. And in the NBA, more than any other sport, number one, the playoffs are completely different than the regular season. There's a bigger gap in that sport than probably any other sport that we have. And second of all, your main guys have to be the guys. Like they're the ones that have to make it happen. Like the Boston isn't going to change now and like all of a sudden, okay, in the fourth quarter, 5 minutes to go. Here you go. We're going to give the ball to Porzingis and Drew Holiday. They're gonna win the game for us. That's not how they play. Now you could argue, well, maybe that should be different, but there's I still see there's some nice things with the Celtics, right? Having Porzingis is awesome. The guy can really shoot. And having a guy like that the other team's center has to try to guard was a problem for Boston. And they kept having to put Jokic on Holiday, and then that was a problem. So it was difficult. It was a difficult challenge for them to figure that out. So that can be a bit of an issue. But what I go back to, at the same time is they still don't have a staple offensively, right? In the fourth quarter with Denver, I know what I'm getting. Murray and Jokic running a pick and roll. If that doesn't work, they'll go to a secondary action or somebody else running pick and roll with Jokic. And it doesn't matter what you do. Like it doesn't matter what defense you play, it doesn't matter how you rotate, what happens, there's an answer. And Jokic is going to find it. Right? Boston at the end of games, I don't know what that is. Like, I'm not sure what their offense is. It's like, okay, Jaylen Brown, you go to the basket. Okay, Tatum, now you go one-on-one. All right, let's try to create it. So it's we're shooting threes, right? Or it's Tatum trying to do it one-on-one. And you saw it last week in the game against Cleveland where, it's just that game was just a microcosm of everything that everybody who complains about the Celtics, this is what they're complaining about, okay? They give up this lead because they miss a bunch of threes, right? They're not taking any other shots. There's 18 seconds to go. They're down one. They walk the ball up the floor. The coach does not call timeout to set up a play. Jason Tatum tries to go one-on-one. They get the switch that they want, so they have Garland on Tatum. Okay, fine. But they basically force him to go right, and then Derek White is wide open on the left side, because Jared Allen is shading over, so they're basically making him take a really difficult shot. And it's just like this is not gonna fly. So my confidence level in the Celtics, getting back to the original question, yes, again, I feel very similar to last year. Like you could try to tell me they're better this year. Maybe they are. But I feel very similar to last year, Clark. They should be in the finals.
Yeah.
But I would not put my money on it.
Yeah.
Like if you put a gun to my head, I'm sorry. I'm not doing it. Like because I've just seen this too many times. Now maybe having Porzingis and Holiday will change that. Maybe it will. But again, then they didn't give Derek White didn't see the ball at all in the fourth quarter of this game in Denver. Like Tatum doesn't have it. Like Jaylen Brown scored 41. So, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum combined to score 56 points. Okay. If Tatum has a better game, it's not likely Jaylen Brown's going to go for 40 again. So somebody's got to, and I just don't feel like they're well coached. And I just feel like that's a problem that is going to show up in the playoffs. It doesn't show up that much in the regular season because it probably doesn't matter. But yeah, I feel like, listen, they're really good. But this idea that I'll be shocked if they don't make the finals, I won't be shocked at all.
No, yeah, exactly. Well, and the other thing is, with Tatum specifically, I mean, this has been an issue for years now. This has been an issue for 3 coaches ago. I mean, remember in the bubble in game 1 in the Eastern Conference Finals, before they went to overtime, Tatum took a step back 3 and he missed it. And then, to his credit, in overtime, he drove to the basket and Bam Adebayo blocked it. But yeah, I mean, so it's been an issue the whole time, even with different coaches. So I don't know what to make of that. I mean, and they're like the leading 3-point shooting team in the league.
Yeah,
Like, teams
attempts.
don't really win championships that way. That's usually not,
Yeah, they lead the league in attempts and percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but again, they don't. But they don't have. And the thing is, they don't have like any dead eye shooters other than Porzingis. Porzingis, at least, okay, this guy's legit. This guy, like you have to pay attention to him, or he's going to make a whole bunch of them. But yeah, Jokic was really impressive. We'll talk about Jokic in one of my other questions. But do you do you think it's, I mean, I think we know the answer to this anyway, but do you think this is like the Celtics have to win it this year, the door's open?
I don't necessarily think so, because Jaylen Brown and Tatum are, they're still really young.
Yeah.
So, and you'll have Holiday and Porzingis, and yeah, it's basically you can fill in role players around them. I don't necessarily think it's a roster issue really with them. I just think it's either it's coaching or I don't know what it is, but I mean they got to figure that out, because you got to be in the playoffs. It's about you got to get there's times when you got to get a bucket, and that's not necessarily, it's not so much about just having one guy and just give him the ball and get out of the way, although sometimes that happens. But it's more about what plays can we run, or how can we set things up to get good looks at the basket in these critical moments in the game. And if you can't do that, then you got a problem, because there's plenty of blowouts in the playoffs. Like, that happens. One team just doesn't bring it one night and whatever. And that even happens in the regular season. But there's going to be games in the playoffs where it's really close at the end, and it's going to come down to, who executed well on offense and made their shots and who didn't.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think the Celtics are going to get 8 to 10 more shots at this with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I don't think they're going anywhere. And I know everybody freaks out about Jaylen Brown's contract. When the salary cap's going up $10 to $15 million every year, like, it'll be fine.
Well, yeah, and we're going to hear, if the Celtics don't win the championship, we're going to hear Colin Cowherd, well, you got to break this up because it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And they're still really young.
Yeah, like, Tatum's 20. Tatum is still 25.
Yeah, maybe they switch coaches at some point. Maybe that helps fix stuff.
Yeah, yeah, like we were advocating for it after the playoff losses last year, Clark. It's like, how about get a real coach? Like, I'm sorry. Like, I just don't know. Maybe this guy will grow into it, but you want to spend 2 or 3 years waiting for this guy to get his act together?
Yeah, I mean, besides which, it's like you want to split up. Okay, fine. There's a bunch of teams that would want Jaylen Brown. I would assume they'd move off Jaylen Brown. So there's a bunch of teams that would want him. What are you going to get? Because we know in those kind of deals, you never get back equal value with multiple players. It never happens that way.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I disagree with the notion that everybody's going to get better and this will be Boston's only chance. I don't agree with that. When your best 2 players are that good and that young, I'm not freaking out about it.
Yeah, you build around them for years to come. Yeah, and also they're not going to break the 2 of them up. Now, could they make some other changes with the rest of the roster? Yeah, possibly. I mean, depending on what's available, but yeah, that would make, like, if you're a GM and you decide to break up 2 guys who are 25, who are all-stars and they're really good, like, you're an idiot as a GM. I don't know what the hell you're thinking.
Yeah, and I don't think. And listen, Brad Stevens obviously doesn't bend to criticism, right? He didn't fire the coach. He's stuck with it throughout this whole time. So I don't think he's going to bail. So, Clark, I was watching some YouTube highlights of the Heat's run to the finals last year, and I just came back to this. Like, it's just crazy to me. Like, Clark, can you believe the Heat made the finals last year?
No, I didn't even watch the first round series until I saw Giannis got hurt. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I started watching. I'm like, oh my God, they're the 8th seed. They're going to win this series, And then it became, they play the Knicks. Like, holy shit, they could get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Then they're playing the Celtics, and they win the first 2 games. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then they make the finals, and the Nuggets were clearly just better than that. So
It's still the craziest thing ever, Clark. I'm like, how the hell? Like, I know Butler just went insane, and then that was a big part of it. But then, that Butler was really hot for like a week, and then they just kept on winning after that. So
yeah,
it blows my mind that it's like, oh, we're just gonna out tough these guys, and I just it's still amazing to me. And what is like, I mean, for me, Clark, I think that I think the other question I wanted to ask you was, where does last year's Heat team, Clark, where do they sit in the the last 17, 18 years of the Heat, where they've been, since they won the first championship to now? Like, where does that team rank? I mean, obviously they're not the best team that we've ever had, but I looked at it like this. I think that team last year, I mean, that was probably the most enjoyable team that we've probably had, just because of how crazy it was what they did, and the expectations were at a certain level, and they just broke right through that. And I realize I'm talking about a team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2022, but it just, to me, like that I mean, the bubble team was really awesome, don't get me wrong,
yeah,
but last year's team was just, as a fan, I mean, that was probably the most enjoyable team of our lifetime.
yeah. I mean, uh, yeah, that was definitely, that was fun. Um, uh, yeah, I mean the 2023 and then the bubble team, like those outside of the championship teams, those were probably, and they were probably more fun to watch than the championship teams, because the first one, it was like they probably should have made the finals the year before, and then they got down 2-0, and it was all like, holy shit, are they going to even win a game in the series? And then they win, so it was kind of nerve wracking the whole time, and then it's like, they won, okay. And then 2012, I mean, yeah, it was fun, but I mean, they came close to just getting eliminated from the playoffs. So it was kind of, and then 2013 was like easier during the rest of the playoffs, but they got to the finals and they almost lost. So it was just kind of like, ah, you know. But these teams, we don't expect them to win the championship. So anything they do is fine, is great. So then they go to the freaking finals, twice. Like I totally didn't expect that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Especially, it's just when you have a team like that, and this is different than like, and granted, it's a different sport. This is different. We're Dolphins fans. This is different than the Dolphins, right? Because the Heat, they'll get into a series with a team that's better than them, and you're watching them play, and it's like, yeah, they're just getting beat by a better team, right? The Dolphins, the problem is they get into a game with a better team, and they just get their asses kicked, and we're like, not that you're not trying, but you guys just clearly can't even hang with these guys for a few minutes. Like, it's not even. But the Heat, like, I mean, they basically, the Bucks opened the door and they just, they kicked their ass. And then like the Knicks, like they were just played really hard the whole time, and they were really tough. And then the Celtics, they just, I mean, the fact that they got a 3-0 on them was just, it's just a lot. It's weird, because like, yeah, as a fan, you want to win the championship, but like teams that don't win the championship, sometimes they're almost more fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, honestly, Clark, I look at like 2006 to me is the original. Nothing's ever going to top that. I mean, we get, not only did we, make an incredible comeback to win the championship, but we've got a superstar. It was like, oh, we've got this guy now that the rest of the league is going to fear. Like we got one of the dudes. That was the first time. And since we got the team in 1988 or whatever it was, that was the first guy where it was just like, oh, okay, like this guy, and he was young. Remember, Dwayne Wade was 24 when he won the Finals MVP. So it's just like, oh man, we got this thing. The LeBron teams, that was just constant pressure. That was just that was a pressure cooker the whole time. Everybody's looking at you. Everybody's pointing at you. Everybody wants to beat you. Everybody hates you. And it was just like the pressure just to win. But then when you finally, when they finally won, it was just the emotional release was just incredible, because it was just this whole thing you've been holding in this whole time. And the peak of, because we've been Heat fans the entire history of the organization. The peak to me was the 27 game winning streak. That was just awesome. Like that was just amazing every night. Like that, the last game against the Bulls was like a finals game. It was just incredible. So that was like the peak, and then obviously the Ray Allen shot. You know, nothing's ever gonna. That's probably singular moments. I don't know that anything's gonna top that. And then the bubble team, Clark. Like I mean, I said it when it was happening. Like the bubble team, that was just some basketball motherfuckers, man. That was just like we got all these dudes, all these tough guys from all these other teams, and we're just gonna, you know. And it was just like all these guys who'd never won anything, and it's like, oh, we're coming together. And you know, the Jimmy Butler, like you know, if you'd have told me like we're going to trade for Jimmy Butler and this is what's going to happen, I'd have said I never would have believed you. This is beyond my wildest expectations for getting Jimmy Butler.
Yeah. That's what's funny. And so people are like, oh, but Butler hasn't won any championships. It's like, yeah, but I didn't expect them to do this much in 4 years. Like I didn't even.
You know how many teams would kill the teams that would kill to be us right now? Like seriously. Yeah. Like, you know, 25 teams in the NBA would love to be the Heat. So, you know, yeah, we didn't win the championship, but so what? You know, it's not like first of all, we've won them before, so it's not like, you know, we've never won one before. So we got that out of the way. And this is just I'm super and just kind of forwarding into this year's Heat team. I mean, Clark, watching the team on the floor, like I think this year's team is better than last year's team. I got to be honest. Now, maybe they're not going to play better, but I think they have a better overall team. You know, obviously Hero being healthy would help, but just replacing, like we lose Strus and Vincent and Lowry, and you replace them with Rozier and Jaquez, and it's like, okay, like these are upgrades. So, you know, I don't know what they're going to do, but they're you can see they're kind of coming along, kind of rounding into form. Like I looked up some stats, like Butler in the last 20 games is averaging like 25 and 10 or something. So they're starting to pick it up. And, you know, we were talking about this the other day. Like, I'm telling you right now, the Celtics fans, they do not want to see the Heat. That's all I'm saying. I don't know that the Heat will win, but it's not a team you're going to want to play in the playoffs. So we'll see how they go. You know, we'll see how high they can get. If they can get into the 4 or 5 seed range. Go into
the 8 seed like last year. They need to be, you know, get to the 5 seed or get to the 4 seed. Really, like that'd be nice, or higher if possible. I don't know.
I mean, but Clark, you just go back and look at it, Clark. The Heat last year, they lose the play-in game to Atlanta. They pretty much kind of get beat pretty bad. It wasn't even really close. They're losing to Chicago in the fourth quarter. Butler has to pull them out of it. You know, they win that game. And then all of a sudden, like Milwaukee, you're thinking, oh, well, I mean, come on, this is a joke. And then Giannis gets hurt and the whole thing changes. And then they keep coming back. They're down 12 in the fourth quarter against Milwaukee in game 4. Yeah. Then they're down on the road. They're down 4 with 14 seconds left. And they find a way to win the game in overtime.
Yeah.
You know, it's absolutely nuts. And then Chicago, you know, you're thinking Boston's going to be, this is going to be a battle to the death. And they're up 3-0. And then the third game, it looked like they quit. It looked like Boston was done. We were kicking their ass. It's like, this thing's over. And it ends up going 7 somehow. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. First of all, they can't top it. Like, no, there's no way the Heat this season are going to top what they did last year. It's so improbable and crazy. I just can't see it happening. But anyway, yeah, I'm hoping for a Heat run. But you know, listen, it's going to be, no matter what it is, you know what you're getting from Miami. You know they're going to give you everything they've got, and so we'll see how it goes. All right, next question. I just wrote this down. I know this is kind of stupid, but who of these two teams, Clark, who do you think could actually make a run? The Lakers or the Warriors?
Oh God! Yeah, this is the annual tradition. We got to find some team teams that are barely in the playoffs, or they're not even really in the playoffs. They're in the play-in.
Yeah,
and we got to like pump them up and be like, oh God, they're gonna. You know, the Warriors. Maybe you can have an argument. Draymond Green was out for a while. Okay, the Lakers have been, other than I think LeBron just hurt his ankle recently or something. Other than that, the Lakers have been pretty healthy. Like Anthony Davis hasn't really had a problem. He's been playing a lot. So it's like, oh, well, the Lakers are why haven't they won more games?
Yeah.
Why are they in the play? If they're so good, why are they in the play-in tournament? It's like, oh, well, they're just built for the playoffs. It's like, okay, I can sort of understand that, but don't you feel like if they have to play, Oklahoma City or like Minnesota, they could just get run off the floor? I mean,
Yeah.
Minnesota, we got to see because I guess Karl Anthony Towns is out for a while now. But yeah, I just feel like some of these younger teams could just run them off the floor. So maybe a similar thing with the Warriors, right? I mean, I don't know. The Warriors, it's like, guys, they had to put Klay Thompson on the bench.
Right.
Okay. And it's like, you trust Jonathan, what are they? Kuminga, is there another young player there?
And Podziemski, the kid they just drafted.
Do you trust them in a playoff game?
Right.
Like, they don't have a lot of playoff experience. Like, in the NBA, that's a thing where you don't just, like not be in the playoffs and then get into the playoffs and then just you're awesome right away. Some players do that, but they're like, all-time greats. So I don't understand why haven't they, both those teams, why haven't they won more games yet if they're so good?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I just look at it like as a matchup thing, and I just think, just looking at the two teams. Obviously, listen, I don't think neither team's making a championship run, and I don't think either one is anywhere near a serious contender. But if you're asking me who do I think might actually be able to get into the playoffs and do some damage, I'm taking the Lakers because the size. Because the Warriors just have clear kryptonite, right? Like the size is a problem for them. And I just think that's going to be an issue. Now, obviously, basketball is matchup dependent, right? And so it cracks me up the other day when Colin Cowherd is like, "I think the Warriors are going to make the conference finals," and then McIntyre corners him. He's like, "Yeah, but it's matchup dependent." Well, yeah, I mean it's matchup dependent, and it's just like, well, wait a minute, like, so I just don't believe in either team. But if you're asking me, I just think that the Lakers just have more answers in a playoff series. I think defensively, the Lakers are good enough to compete with a lot of these teams, and offensively, they can figure it out. LeBron has good enough guys around him that he can figure it out, and I think that you'll get enough good games from Davis. So that I just think, yeah, like especially if they played in a play-in game, like I would pick the Lakers because I just think the Warriors are just Curry's got to be making threes. That's their, otherwise they just can't. I just don't think they can play at a high enough level, to do damage. But crazy stuff happens in the NBA playoffs. But yeah, I would say the Lakers first, but not that the Warriors can't be competitive, but I find it hard to believe they're going to win a series against one of these other teams. It's just hard for me to believe.
Yeah, they won one series last year, and Sacramento probably should have beat them.
Right.
So,
yeah. Sacramento had a shot from Harrison Barnes in Game 4 to go up 3-1, and if he makes that shot, like they're done. So and Curry has to go for 50 in Game 7. So yeah, I just don't. There's no way I buy either one of those teams, and I just think everything worked out perfectly for the Lakers last year, making the conference finals. I don't see it lining up for that like that for them again.
right.
All right. Do you think Milwaukee can get it together well enough to be, to compete for the Eastern Conference?
Possibly, but I don't know. I'd have to watch them more just to get a better idea. Because I don't know if are they just going to be doing the same thing that they did before? I mean, that was two coaches ago, crazily enough. So I don't know how they're going to be defensively. And it's funny because they've won a lot of games, yet everybody seems to be not impressed with them. So they're more impressed with Boston. Which, I mean, I guess I get because, Milwaukee no longer has Drew Holiday. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how that kind of works out. I don't think they're a prohibitive favorite by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I watched them play the Lakers the other night. They lost in LA, when LeBron was out, and D'Angelo Russell made like 8 threes or whatever, and so he had 44 points. Yeah, I watch them, and it's like you can see the pieces are there. Number one, the Giannis Dame thing works, like it just worked, like which is just bizarre. That's like it took you firing the coach to figure out, oh, let's have our two best players run pick and rolls together. It's like, what were you doing? Like Damian Lillard did this interview the other day where he's like, Doc came in and he's like, because Doc Rivers coached against Dame a lot, especially when he was with the Clippers and all of that stuff. So he's like, he knew what things were difficult when with Damian Lillard, what things are difficult to guard. And he's like, you guys don't. He says to Dame, you guys don't run this, you guys don't run that, you guys don't what. It's like, what have you guys been doing? Like, like this is the stuff you should be running. And Damian Lillard was awesome. He comes off a Giannis sets a screen, gives hands the ball to him. He makes a three, near in the fourth quarter to keep him in the game. Like, that part to me, like, I don't think that's a problem. But yeah, defense, they're gonna have to figure some stuff out. And I think, like, in watching that game, I think we're going to have to consider. I don't know if Doc will do it because he loves the players too much, but on some of these defensive possessions, when it gets late in the game, they should consider taking Dame out, because the last possession of the game was basically run for D'Angelo Russell to get Damian Lillard on him, so he could score. And so I think they're going to have to, but that's a minor thing that you can work out. But I think they're going to get better over the next month. I don't know if it's going to be at the level that it needs to be for them to win, but they're doing a lot more, from listening to the people talk about it, Kevin O'Connor and people at the Ringer. It sounds like they're working stuff out. Like they're doing better at different defensive coverages, and they're trying to be more adaptable. So I think they could figure it out and be pretty good. I think that they're going to be an issue, and they're going to be in the 2-3 seed probably. It's them and Cleveland are going to be 2 and 3. So they'd avoid Boston until the conference finals. So I think they have enough time to make some noise. I just don't, I don't know, but they're damn good. There's no reason on offense that they shouldn't be awesome, because you watch Lillard and Giannis play together. It's like, wow, that's, I wish we had that. All right. This is, I find, an interesting question. Now that Karl Anthony Towns is out, right? And a lot of the complaints have been since, they made that trade for Gobert. It's like, oh man, you should be gearing the whole team towards Anthony Edwards and all of this stuff. You think it's possible that Minnesota might be better without Karl Anthony Towns?
Maybe. We'll have to see. I mean, he doesn't make the best decisions in some of the playoff games. So yeah, I mean, possibly, you don't want to be cluttering up. It's weird, right? Because, like, I think sometimes people look at the NBA like it's the NFL and you can just cram a bunch of talented players together. And it's like, well, not really. Like, you got to have players sort of fit into different spots and be able to do certain things to have it all work. So, yeah, maybe if you kind of gear more stuff around Anthony Edwards, maybe that makes sense, and you're not, trying to get shots for Karl Anthony Towns. But, I mean, Karl Anthony, he's still really talented, and he's huge. So that does present some problems for the other team.
Yeah, the Towns' versatility is kind of a big plus for them. Now, he has some drawbacks, just him as a player, but just the way you look at the team, like I think he does definitely add to it. I think this could be really interesting though, as a test case, because Minnesota should be really good on defense. They have Gobert at center, and then they have Edwards and McDaniels, the wings, who can guard all kinds of people. So right. They should, to me, I would lean into, we're going to kick your ass on defense. We're going to lock your ass down, and we're going to keep these games reasonable. And then, Ant's going to do his thing. And we're going to run. They got Mike Conley. We can run pick and rolls with him. So I feel like they have stuff, but it's just a matter of, is Anthony Edwards too young to be kind of, taking this stuff over? Is he really ready for that? I think he has the right attitude and the right temperament, and the team follows him. But I don't know, basketball wise, is he ready to take on that kind of load every night? Right. So I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance this might turn into something, and it might be really, even if Cat comes back, it might be really good for him to go through this period of time, and they still have a shot at the 1 seed. So we'll see how it goes. So Phoenix, I looked at it today. I think they've dropped to 7, but they're right 6-7, right in that area. Do you think Phoenix is right where they should be?
I mean, probably. I don't. So, I mean, they've still had an issue having all three of their main guys play together. They have not had a lot of time on the court together, which I just feel like is really funny because it's like, well, they need more time together, and they're not able to play together. So I think that's obviously going to be. You can't just throw stuff. I mean, again, I said this before the season. You can't just throw stuff together and expect it to work.
Yeah, I think I mean I gotta it's weird. Yeah, the injuries have limited them, right? And you know to where they are in the standings. But I did not think Nurkic would play this well. I thought like there's no way this is going to work with all these other dudes on their team. And they've kind of. I mean, I kind of am. I'm impressed that they're where they are. To be honest, I thought though if you'd have told me those guys were going to play that few games together, I thought they're like you know they'd be looking in at the playoffs instead of you know in the 6-7 spot trying to move up. So I think that yeah that now listen, do I think they're you know really can they really win multiple series in the playoffs? I don't think so. You know, maybe they can step up their game a level and or whatever. And Kevin Durant's still scary. If you're playing against him in the playoffs, he's a scary dude, and especially Booker when if he gets hot. So, you know, they could be a problem. But I kind of you know, it's if you told me like they're going to miss that many games and they would still be in it, I would have said you were crazy. So I think that the other guys and Grayson Allen's really played well. So a lot of the guys that wasn't really counting on, and we'll see when it you know it's different in the playoffs. Obviously, put that disclaimer on everything. But I'm you know the role players have done better than I thought they would. So, but I had such a low opinion to begin with. You know, maybe that's you got to take that into consideration. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's about right. Um, is Jokic the MVP from now on?
Um, I don't know. I think you end up splitting hairs with that kind of stuff. Um, it's tough because like Giannis has actually had. If you look at his numbers, he's had a really good year. So then I guess it just comes down to I guess it comes down to this part of the season, where people kind of make their judgments. They kind of figure out, all right, I think we like this guy better. So, and maybe some people are like, well, maybe Jokic should have won it last year. So maybe they give it to him again this year. I don't know. Of course, there's that whole thing where like, oh, I don't know if we want to give an MVP to somebody a third time. Do we gotta. So yeah, that's tough. That's always tough to say because I feel like it's such a narrative based award that it's. I mean, I guess I would say that he's the MVP, but I mean, then you run the risk of just saying that every year because you see how valuable he is. But I mean, they're like the 3 seed right now. They're right there to try to get close to the 1 seed. They're like a half game or a game out. So, if he's having a really good year numbers wise, and they're considered a championship contender and they're a high seed in the playoffs, then that's those kind of guys usually get it. But the Bucks are going to be a high seed in the playoffs too. So
I look, all right. So here's my take, Clark. Not only is Jokic the best player, Clark, the gap is widening. Okay. He's like, I know people want to argue. I know Nick Wright is arguing for Giannis. Giannis is the best player and all this stuff. And I understand, some of Giannis's numbers are better. But to me, Clark, it's just really simple. Nobody elevates the rest of their team like Jokic does. Like it is just there's nothing you can do. Boston tried everything you could possibly do in that game. They put Porzingis on him. They put Horford on him. They put Xavier Tillman on him. They tried doubling him. They like there's nothing you can do with this guy. And especially when you talk about in the clutch at the end of games, right? Giannis can't shoot. You can't really go to him at the end of games. He doesn't really post up. He can't shoot free throws. Like he needs somebody else to close the games for him, And so I understand people trying to make the Shaq argument. First of all, Giannis is not as dominant as Shaq was. He's dominant, don't get me wrong, but it's not Shaq. That's not what we're talking about here. So I think, I just don't understand what the debate is. Okay, Jokic can be had on defense. Like they're pretty good on defense. Jokic is not, I understand, Jokic is not Anthony Davis or Giannis or any of these great defensive centers. I get that. I'm not saying, but the guy's he's not a disaster on defense. Like, it's not like, oh my God, what are we going to do with this? Or we're lighting them up because of Jokic's defense. The Celtics couldn't light them up. They were still struggling with him. So yeah, I don't even understand what we're talking about anymore. Like I love Giannis, but I'm sorry, man. Like Jokic it's his league, man. He's running it. Like, and the thing is, Clark, when you talk about like the best players in the league and the all-time greats, what I noticed the common thread between all of them is they control the game. Okay, whether they're scoring or anything else, their hands are on the game. They're in control of it. The great ones: LeBron, Kobe, Michael Jordan. That's how Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. That's what they have control of the game, and a lot of them can do it without even scoring. Jordan did kind of have to be scoring, but guys like Magic and LeBron, they could be in control of the game, and they're not even scoring that much on you. So I think Jokic is like that. I don't even think. Yeah, now he's 30-point triple doubles in these games. But the guy produces every single time. It's not like, oh man, he was really bad tonight or whatever. Like you saw it in the playoffs last year. They had a game against Phoenix. All right, I need to score 48. Okay, I'll score 48 this game because they're single covering me. I'll just score every time. And so, I don't see. I think he's got the belt, and I just don't see anybody really close.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Nuggets, I kind of want them to repeat, just because that way, they're not just like a one-off champion. They'll have, because there's a limited number of teams that have repeated in the history of the league. So I think it'd be really cool for them to repeat, because then it can be like, especially if like Jokic won the MVP this year again, it can be like, okay, it's the same thing with like the Pistons from the 80s. Like, you remember them not just because of the bad boy nickname, but I mean, they won 2 championships in a row. So, you're going to remember them. So I think it'd be really cool to, like this era of the NBA, we can be like, oh yeah, the Nuggets, they repeated. I think that would be really cool to see. Because I mean, they're really set up to try to win a championship this year and next year too. So
yep. Yeah, they're in the Nuggets are in really good shape, especially salary cap wise, where they got everybody signed up for next season. And and I think these young guys that they've held on to come off the bench for them, they're doing stuff. Peyton Watson and Justin Holiday, and they got like I see this, like, this team's built well, and they're built to last. So I don't think this is going to be. And now they have, like, in that game against Celtics, they had like lineup flexibility. Like, oh, Porter's got it this game. Okay, we'll leave him in. All right, well, we'll take him out and put the defensive guy in. Like, they got like, oh wow, they got like lineup flexibility now that the Celtics don't even have. So yeah, I'm sorry, man. Like, you're gonna have to take them out. I'm not picking anybody but Denver until they lose. That's where I'm at with it. All right. I threw this one at the end because I'm a jerk. You have any trust in James Harden?
I mean, in the playoffs, I mean, I don't think we really should. I mean, because, well, I don't know. I mean, this is kind of messed up. But what player do you trust more, James Harden or Ben Simmons? At the very least, James Harden will be out there. I mean, and again, maybe Ben Simmons is legit injured. I don't know, but it's just
yeah.
James Harden. I mean, he's just has not been himself in the playoffs. Really, really great players, they get better in the playoffs. Jimmy Butler is better in the playoffs than he is in the regular season. Harden doesn't really do that.
So, yeah. Nick Wright was arguing last year. He was like, in a series, who would you take? I'd take Butler over Jason Tatum. And it's like, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
he's not wrong. I mean, we all acknowledge Tatum's a better player, I think it's the same. I just feel like it's the same thing. I just feel like Harden's going to flame out. And these people arguing for the Clippers, like, oh, well, he's the third option now, it'll be fine. Watch the Clippers play, man. Harden has the ball the whole time. He's the point guard. He's running the show.
Yeah.
So if he flames out, that is going to have a gigantic detrimental effect on everybody else. Yes, Kawhi and Paul George can go get the ball and score. I get it. But Harden's setting people up. Harden's doing the thing that they've needed, a point guard, somebody who runs plays, which, by the way, Celtics still struggling with that. Still struggling with the point guard, who's going to set up the offense, who's going to do that. And that's a problem for the Celtics and the Clippers. That comes back to bite you in the playoffs. So yeah, I don't have a lot of trust. He'll probably have a game or two like he did last year where it's like, oh man, he made the big shot at the end. He's that kind of guy, but consistently every game, I don't see it.
Yeah. So, do you want to take another victory lap about how the Ben Simmons James Harden trade was between the Brooklyn Nets and the Sixers was a complete disaster?
Yeah, so God, I wish I had all the stuff in front of me. But Zach Lowe goes through like the whole trade and all the stuff that they got and all the stuff that they lost for the James Harden thing. And I mean, I got to tell you, like Philadelphia, I mean, yeah, they got James Harden, and I knew that was going to be a problem when they did it. But at least they dumped Ben Simmons because now he's injured, out for the year. Like he's still got one more year of his $40 million contract. So Brooklyn is still stuck with him, and I mean they can't even play him. Like Clark, he doesn't even play more than 15 games a year. Like it's a goddamn disaster. So I got to be honest. Like now I look at it like it's even gotten worse now. Where I look at it like I was killing Philadelphia for getting James Harden, and it's kind of like yeah they got James Harden and that wasn't great, but you know what? Dumping Ben Simmons it's almost worth it. It really was. It was almost worth it. I just think they should have gotten some better pieces for James Harden that would have helped their team better. But hey, I told you this was gonna be a disaster. That Philadelphia they were gonna regret it, and I know they regret the Harden thing, but they don't regret dumping Ben Simmons. And like Zach Lowe brought this up, like so Ben Simmons in that series against Atlanta a few years ago, where he passed the ball instead of dunking or laying the ball in. Is that just it? Like, is that the last like moment that matters in his career? Like, is that the last thing we're going to remember him for? And it kind of seems like it is.
Yeah. That's just, really, really talented. I mean, and he has, I mean, I guess he's had some injuries. So I don't want to say that they haven't been injuries, but it just, for all the talent he has, you feel like you'd get more out of it. And it's just, the Nets are not getting anywhere near the value of that contract. So that's just been kind of a
and he's to the
it's
point.
funny to me that like people are like God, Dan Patrick's like I just don't know if he really wants to play if he's really that passionate about basketball, and it's like they said that when he was coming out of college.
Yep. Yeah, I think, and the thing is, like now Clark Harden is older now, and it's not like he was always in the best shape to begin with. So I just don't know how you can expect this guy to deliver game after game after game after game, and it's just they're going to need him. It's not like I just don't feel like you can be like, oh well, he's a third option, he can kind of come and go. No,
yeah, but when he has the ball, like that's really important.
Well, right, but you want to win playoff series, like you can need guys on the floor who can deliver. And if in the way the NBA works now, if your dude isn't getting it done, the other team will target that guy. It's not like, oh, he can hide on the floor. You can't do that. In 2024, you can't do that in the NBA. So, yeah, I don't have a lot of confidence in Harden. The Clippers are really talented, so they're always dangerous. But I just feel like, and plus Denver kind of has their number. Since the bubble, Denver's pretty much dominated them. So, not really worried about that. All right, so moving on. Clark, I thought this was interesting. Chris Sims came out with his quarterback rankings. Now, just to, for everybody, just so you let you know, the draft is the last week of April. Now is about the time we had the combine last week. So now is about the time where we start getting like real legitimate information because teams have done all of their preparation. They've watched all the film. They've seen all the stuff at the combine, and you're starting to get actual NFL people saying stuff that actually matters to all the people that are doing mock drafts. So this is like the first batch of like, okay, we got real information now, real breakdowns about what people think. Now, people are going to do all their individual workouts and their pro days in March. So a month from now, we'll have the best information that we're going to get before the draft. So he had the quarterbacks ranked, and it was starkly different than how everybody else, than how everybody else has them ranked. So the way most of the mock drafts have them ranked at this point, they have Caleb Williams number 1, Drake May number 2, Jaden Daniels number 3, and then there's kind of a gap, and then it's all kind of up in the air. Some people have JJ McCarthy going 8th, some people have him going 12th, and they have Bo Nix and Michael Penix in the second round. And what I find weird is I don't understand what the separation is about. Like, I don't understand. Like, you can't tell me, like, from my eyes, you can't tell me JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, and Michael Penix are just, there's a huge gap between any of them. To me, they're very similar. They just have different stuff. But I don't understand why one is better than, talking about those three guys. So Chris Sims came out with it. He said Caleb Williams is on a tier by himself, right? Then Jaden Daniels is below him on his own tier, right? And he said Jaden Daniels in most years would be the number one pick. He said, if it wasn't for Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels would go number one. No question about it. And then he said there's a gap. And then the third tier is JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix. And he liked Bo Nix the best out of those three. But he said basically it's splitting hairs between the three of them. But he liked Bo Nix the best out of those three. He liked JJ McCarthy after that, and then Penix after that. And then he had Drake May like in another tier below them. So he thought Drake May was like a project. Like, this guy, yes, he does some things that are very exciting and very good, but he also misses all kinds of throws he shouldn't miss. And if you watch Drake May this year, that's what it was. He was hit or miss. They lost games they had no business losing. They played really well in some other games, and then they were just kind of all over the place in some games. And I never thought Mac Brown's teams had amazing offenses. So I never thought, oh man, he's really gonna, further this guy's career. But you can just see the guy's really talented. But yeah, the production it's not great. It's inconsistent. So I can understand that. He talked about he thought Caleb Williams just had the most just unbelievable talent. Like, the guy could throw it from anywhere. He moves really well. He's like, from what he said, he reads defenses really well. Like, he catches what they're doing on offense. He's like, but he doesn't really like Lincoln Riley's offense. Like, Chris Sims is basically saying the air raid is just really hard. It's hard to evaluate if you're talking about going to the NFL, because it's just totally different than anything you would see in the NFL. And so, yeah, I totally agree with him. But he thought Bo Nix would be a great fit in Denver with Sean Payton, because he thought, the guy's pretty accurate with the ball. And the thing is, it came out, like, I thought Bo Nix was small. He's 6'2". So, that kind of, to me, changes the trajectory, because he's like, he throws the ball really well. He does, reads the coverage really well, does what he's supposed to do. And then if you put him in the right offense. So my takeaway from this is basically, look, I think Caleb Williams could make a lot of plays even if he's on a bad team. I think I look at it like it's all about fit to me. That's how I look at it with all these guys. I think Caleb Williams, like, the Bears have Shane Waldron as their offensive coordinator. By all accounts, he's a good coach. So I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be able to be somewhat successful. Now, the Bears organization and the head coach and all of that stuff, maybe that'll get in the way. I don't know. But I feel like there's enough there in Chicago that he should be able to be pretty successful with that offense. And yes, are there some issues? Sure. But, the guy's he's got the whole thing. And like Merrill Hodge made this point, and I think this is really important, that Patrick Mahomes had all this crazy talent, whatever, and he went to this team, whatever, but he got to sit for a year. He got coached by Andy Reid. Like, that's why it looks like it does. And so that's what worries me with Caleb Williams. He's got a lot of stuff that's raw, and if he's not coached well, I mean, it may not even matter. But I think he's going to make a lot of plays. Jaden Daniels, Chris Sims was like, this guy, he throws it really well. Like, his mechanics are really good. He throws it the same way every time, but he doesn't have all these different arm angles that these other guys do. And basically, when he runs, it's like a wide receiver running. Like, he's got, like, severe talent, unbelievable talent, and can run, basically away from anybody. Now, he's a little slight, so that's a bit of an issue. But I can understand, and I see where he's coming from with JJ McCarthy. He basically said, look, JJ McCarthy was like, all right, we're going to run it 7 times in a row. All right, 3rd and 12, JJ, you got to make something happen. Go do it. And so that makes it challenging. So I thought I really liked the way he ranked them. I thought that was really appropriate. I think McCarthy, Nix, and Penix, I think it's just they got to go to the right team. They got to go to the right team. If they don't go to the right team, then I don't know what they're probably going to be out of the league in a couple of years. So we'll see. But yeah, I thought he did. I thought that was really a good job, and I hope that we get more people kind of weighing in. And you can tell, like, I'll believe people, Clark, if they have like an actual strong opinion. Like when Merrill Hodge comes out and says, "Yeah, Drake May is he's just a problem," and Bo Nix's size is going to be an issue. Like, I appreciate that over the people who are just like, "Oh, we'll rank him," because for the last like year and a half, Clark, it's been Caleb Williams 1, Drake May 2. And that was what everybody was spitting out. It's not based in any kind of reality though. That's just based in, well, this guy looks really talented. Let's put him number 2.
Yeah. Well, I do. I'll say this. I'll make a prediction. I think all 6 of those quarterbacks are going to end up going in the first round.
I totally think. I mean, I think 4.
I'm not necessarily saying they should, but I'm just saying I feel like that's what ends up happening.
I agree. Yeah, I think 4 are probably going to go in the top 10 or top 12 for sure.
Probably.
And then
now,
somebody,
there's a chance maybe Penix or somebody else falls out,
right,
falls down late in the first round or possibly the second round. But I would totally not be surprised if all of them win the first round.
Yeah, because I think once you get past 15, I think teams are going to trade back into the first round to get one of them. I think that is going to happen. There's no doubt about it. There's just no way. You just don't get this amount of quarterback talent in one draft like this. It just doesn't happen. So I just think, I think that, but it's going to, like I said, it's all going to come down to, now we'll see where the free agent quarterbacks go. So Baker Mayfield, I just saw that he re-signed in Tampa. So that spot's filled. So I think, we'll see what happens with the free agent quarterbacks, because we'll have more than a month, where they can figure this stuff out. So we'll know exactly who needs a quarterback and exactly who doesn't. But yeah, I think Caleb Williams too good to pass up. I think Jaden Daniels' talent is too good to pass up. Like, I just don't see them letting him go. Oh yeah, and the Patriots traded Mac Jones to the Jaguars. So, looks like they'll be taking a quarterback. So now that the Drake May stuff is out there, I'm interested to see what happens over the next month. Does he start falling in these mock drafts as other teams do their evaluation? Because Chris Sims is like, look, I'm not going out on a limb here. When other NFL teams see this, they're going to do that. They're going to rank them like this. He was like, when they watch the film, they're going to be like, yeah, nah, I just don't buy it. That doesn't mean he can't be good, right? And it might work out perfectly for Drake May. Maybe he goes in the second round now and he goes to a team that, actually knows what they're doing. So, yeah, I think that, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, Clark, it's just kind of crazy to me. Like Jaden Daniels, like in the offseason, I'm like, this guy's got a lot of work to do. Before last season, I'm like, this guy's got, this guy, he's improving, but he's got a lot of work to do. And it's like, second, third round pick, whatever. And then late in the season, it was like, oh, he's a first round pick. And now he's shot all the way up to number 2. So it's like, what is happening? So yeah, I hope that, I'm interested to see how this shakes out going forward. But yeah, I thought Chris Sims, I'm always interested. And listen, Chris Sims is not a guy where he's right on all of them or he's wrong on all of them. He's kind of in the middle. He had Jordan Love over Tua, right? Looks like he's going to be right about that. He really likes Zach Wilson over Trevor Lawrence. Missed on that one. So we'll see. You can only, and the thing is, like, I guess my overall point, Clark, is when we're looking at this, the way people are talking about how they evaluate the players, you can only evaluate the tape that's available. You can only evaluate what they've put on film. You can't, we don't have access to everything. We don't know what they would look like in this offense or that offense or with this coach or these receivers. You have to evaluate what they've got now, which is why, I don't know that I would be crazy about JJ McCarthy in the top 10, but he's talented enough to be a first round pick.
Right.
There's no, these people like, oh, well, he never threw the ball. And no, dude, look at the talent and the traits. Like, he's a first round pick quarterback. No doubt about it. So anyway, yeah. So we'll see how it goes going forward. So this was another issue that I saw this week that I kind of put 2 and 2 together when I see people talking about this. So Caitlin Clark, women's basketball player, plays for University of Iowa. She broke the all-time scoring record for women in the NCAA. Right now, before the 1983 or whatever, the NCAA didn't have like a specific women's basketball league or whatever, so they were playing in other, so these records get a little weird, but regardless, she broke the women's all-time scoring record for points, and then she broke the all-time scoring record that Pete Maravich held that was on the men's side. So she scored. So it's just a fact. She scored the most points in NCAA basketball, men's or women's. That's all that means. Okay. So she is the all-time leading scorer in college basketball. And you immediately it's like these shows, Clark, and these media, they cannot help themselves. They've got to start putting in qualifiers. Well, Pete Maravich only played 3 years and he averaged 44 points a game and there was no 3-point line and, whatever. It's just like, wait a minute. Have you found, like, Clark, in your 40 years of watching sports, have you found a lot of people that are rushing to try to, like, we got to defend Pete Maravich. We got to talk about Pete Maravich and don't fall asleep on him. Like, no, not really. No, I don't hear a lot of Pete Maravich conversations. If you read basketball history books and stuff like that, yeah, you'll see him mentioned, and he's got incredible highlights. But it just, the amount of people coming out like, oh, well, I don't know, is it really the record? I mean, I don't. It's like, really, do you have to do that? Like, is it necessary to try to, like, oh, well, it's not that great and blah blah blah? It's like, no, we're not saying she's the greatest basketball player ever, which Jay Williams couldn't seem to figure out on ESPN, by the way. We're not saying she's the greatest player ever. That's not what we're saying. It just means she's the all-time leading scorer. She has the record. Does it mean she's better than Pistol Pete? I mean, whatever. We can all judge that. That's subjective. That's nothing to do with the discussion. She's great. She scored the most points. End of story. And then LeBron, scored 40,000 points, became the first NBA player to score 40,000 points. Now, he'd already broke Kareem's record last year. I think it was last year or the year before. So 40,000 points. Now, it's interesting that, Clark, when Michael Jordan scored 30,000 points, they stopped the game. They gave him a trophy. Okay. LeBron scores 40,000. They didn't stop the game. Next time out, they did a little thing over the PA, whatever, but they didn't stop the game. So 40,000 points. So it's like, and then the Jordan fans are like, oh, well, 40,000 points. I mean, what is that? I mean, really? So that counts in his legacy argument? Like, yeah, it counts. He scored the most points of anybody ever. And it's by a lot now. It's not even like close. It's like he's obliterated the record. So yeah, I'm just annoyed with people in the media or people who think they're slick, who want to like come in and be the voice of, no, I mean, it's not really the record. I mean, if you look at it this way, it's really like, we don't watch sports I mean, I'm sorry. I don't know about anybody else. I don't watch sports to be right. I like being right, but I watch sports because it's fun. Okay, like, could we not just zap all the fun out of it and just enjoy this kid? Caitlin Clark's going to be in college like another, however long they go in the NCAA tournament, and that's it. Can we just enjoy this ride and not have to try to pick it apart? Well, it's not really, blah blah blah. I just find it hysterical, Clark. Like, we don't do this in other arguments. We don't do this. Like, we don't go with Tom Brady. Well, I mean, look at some of the Super Bowls. And yeah, you get to play a lot longer now than you used to, and all the training and nutrition and blah, blah, blah. We don't do that. So why are we doing that? She's the all-time leading scorer, period.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I mean, it's basically, it's reactionary, and it's trying to find, because you can't, people, I guess in the media, they feel like, well, we can't just have everybody on the show just agree, or just be all celebratory. We have to, we have to have, some people can be celebratory and other people can throw a wet blanket on it because that's more interesting. And, I guess there's an argument to be made for that, but I don't know. Is it really that much more interesting? Like, you can say, you could all be celebratory, and each person could talk about a different reason why this is amazing. it's there's no, we don't need to get into a thing where we have to have a debate about it, and then we have to try to, like Jay Williams, he said, Caitlin Clark, I can't put her as what was it, like, as one of the
Yeah,
all.
I can't say that she's great because she hasn't won a championship.
That's, come on.
I mean, do we call Charles Barkley great? Yeah. Like, it's just bizarre to me. I don't understand. What are you doing? And it's like, it just felt really bad. It just like, just ridiculous, dude. Like, what are we talking about? Like, we're having a conversation about this. And the other thing is, Clark, if she broke the record and she wasn't like shooting threes from half court, this wouldn't be that much of a discussion. She's talked about because she's amazing. Like, the stuff she's doing is incredible. So that's what we should be enjoying. And by the way, and so that's what another thing that ticked me off. Jason Whitlock is like, she doesn't really have the record. Well, it's like, no, dude. She has the record.
The whole idea, she doesn't really have the record. It's like,
she has the record. Who scored the most points in NCAA history? Caitlin Clark. Period. End of discussion. There's not a debate. We're not debating facts here. Like, you want to debate who's better, her, Cheryl Miller, or Candace Parker? Fine, no problem. We can debate that. We're not debating who's the best scorer ever.
Yeah. That's oh, well, it's not real. It's like, well, no, dude, it's real. You can think whatever you want to think, but no, that's like, we have the numbers. Like, she scored more points than anybody. So, and yeah, that's one of those things where it's like, dude, what is the point that you're trying to make? Are you trying to say, well, there's only certain things that you can really enjoy? That's basically it. And if anything outside of that, no, don't enjoy this. That's not that big of a deal. You ignore that. Just don't. Is LeBron a great scorer? Well, no. Really? He's scored more points than anybody in NBA history. He's not a great scorer. It's like, oh, well, no, I just like Kobe better. Fine. But LeBron is a great scorer. You become a great scorer when you score more points than anyone in the history of the NBA.
I mean, Clark, I feel like LeBron's going to play 25 years in the NBA, and people are going to be like, he's kind of a compiler, though. They're going to start using his longevity against him. The guy's averaging 25, 7, and 7 for 20 years. They're like, but
Well, yeah, and then you see stuff and this is part of the problem with social media. You'll see stuff on social media where people will post stuff and they'll be like, yeah, I mean, LeBron, it's all about stats. Right, he didn't do any winning. He didn't win any games. He didn't win 4 championships and make the finals 10 times. Yeah, it's all just stats. Okay, right. He didn't do any winning. It's like, well, he didn't get 6. Yeah, he got 4. What if you don't get 6, you have 0? Like, what? That literally doesn't. It's just like, it's like, people, you need to understand this. These type of arguments literally make no sense, and you sound like you just don't know what you're talking about.
Well, speaking of, trolling is an art form now, Clark, and probably the Picasso of trolling is Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless still has
Travis is pretty good at that too.
Clay Travis is pretty good too, but Skip Bayless is the king. Skip Bayless, Clark, has LeBron number 9 all time in the history of the NBA. 9th. I mean, how are you finding 8 guys to put ahead of LeBron? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll say this for the people who think that Jordan is better than LeBron. Fine, okay, but he's one of the, and I was thinking about this the other day. Okay, he's probably top 3, at least top 5, if we're being really honest. If not, some people think he's the greatest ever. Okay, fine, he's at least top 5. Okay. But if you can't acknowledge that LeBron is one of the, and I'll be liberal here with this, but if you can't acknowledge that LeBron is one of the 10 to 15 greatest players in the history of the NBA, then you just don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so when people say LeBron's great, that's essentially what they're. Some people argue he's the greatest ever, but a lot of more people are just arguing you got to put him in the top 5 or the top 10 or at least the top 15. Okay, that's what most people are saying when they're praising what LeBron's career has been. Okay. So if you can't accept that, then you're just burying your head in the sand and trying to be negative. So,
yeah, it just it's just insanity to me. It's like, no, well, that doesn't really count. It's just like, what are we doing now? It's just like,
what counts? I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know what basis we're on, but yeah. So All right. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, Clark, and I wanted to read this because it's so emblematic of exactly what we've been talking about. You know, we were talking about the college football playoff and how everybody's reaction to it and how everyone's losing their minds. And and I came out and said this is not a big deal. They haven't agreed to anything. Everybody going crazy. Oh my God, how could they do that? You know, like it's the worst thing that's ever happened. Even though we've been talking about a 12-team play, we've been talking about a playoff since 1967, and we finally have one. And it's just amazing how unhappy everybody is. So the college football playoff committee was meeting to determine, okay, should we, we got 12 teams for the next 2 years, should we talk about adapting or changing the format a little bit, adding more teams for 2026? So the article came out that they might be doing that, and everybody got up in arms. Tony Kornheiser, Mike Wilbon, all the media, all the college football media got all upset. Oh, how could you do this? You guys are screwing with it. You're going to ruin it. Blah 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 blah. So then, article comes out yesterday or Friday. Sources: College football playoff reconsidering auto buys in 14-team playoff, because that was a sticking point, right? Automatic bids for conferences, guaranteed automatic bids. Oh, we can't do that. What are you, crazy? College football playoff leaders are inching closer to a 14-team playoff for the 2026 season, but sources have indicated that the proposed idea of the SEC and Big Ten champions receiving guaranteed buys is starting to lose some steam among conference commissioners following public backlash. So, here's my thing. Was that just they either the Big Ten and the SEC put it out to kind of test the waters to see if they could get away with it, right? Or the ACC and the Big 12 put it out because they knew everybody would get upset to try to say, see, they're trying to take advantage of us. Regardless, Clark, that was never put out there because, oh, this is what we're going to agree to, and we're voting right now and we're going to agree to it. Just complete bullshit. So are you guys all marks? Like, you got everybody fell for it. And that's my overall point. Everybody fell for it. Like, what is wrong with you people? As Aaron Rodgers once said, RELAX. Relax. Okay? Calm the bleep down. They might go to 14 teams. First of all, if they want to go to 14 teams, that's fine. I don't see what the problem with that is. More inclusive, I'm okay with it. What's the difference between 12 and 14 is minor anyway. And all of the arguments we talked about, oh, you're just greedy and blah, blah, blah. It's like, and it was said like in that article like a week ago, it was, oh, well, they want to agree to it in March. They want to agree to it this month. This article is talking about they'll probably revisit it next year. Okay, so the idea that they were going to agree on this and they're just going to push it on through and everything will be fine. And they're just going to go ahead and do this because they can. Complete nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Okay, they're going to talk about this format. They're going to talk about that format. They're going to talk about this other format. They're going to have to come back 6 months from now and meet again. Like, this will be an ongoing story. I can guarantee you they won't have this decided for at least another year. And knowing the way college football works, they'll wait until the last possible second to figure this out. It'll be 2025. We got to decide on this playoff right now because we got to, logistics and all this stuff. And that's when they'll figure it out. And it'll probably be reasonably equitable because, like I said, and I don't know why nobody else could just say this, everybody's got to agree on it. It's got to be unanimous. So the other conferences are not going to just go along with something that completely screws them.
Yeah. This a lot of this, and we went over this I think last podcast. I mean, a lot of this outcry is just ridiculous. Most people have been wanting a playoff for decades now. The media has been complaining about this for forever, and they're finally like, we're getting a 12-team playoff, and then they're actually quickly talking about expanding it. I just don't understand the argument. Well, we got to test this out. What is going to happen in a 12-team playoff that's going to make you go, yeah, this doesn't work. We need to revisit having it. Like, really, seriously, what's going to happen that's going to cause you to, like, guys, everybody's going to make a lot of money on it. There's going to be some really good games in the playoff. It's going to be entertaining. Again, I understand some of the complaints about, oh, well, it's better to have a limited system. Like, I kind of agree with that. But, I mean, guys, you're acting like this is just going to be a disaster. It's not going to be a disaster. It's going to be different, but it's not going to be a disaster.
It works in every other sport. Every other sport has it. It works just fine. And the other thing, like everyone, I know everybody loves to criticize the NCAA, and I've brought this up before, but Clark, if we let the NCAA run the college football playoff, it'd be fine. They'd work it out. Everything would be good because you know what the NCAA actually does really well? I know it's surprising to hear the NCAA actually does stuff really well, but they actually do. They're logistics. Okay. They run the tournament for every other sport, every other lower level of football. They're running the basketball tournaments that are coming up right now for men's and women's. They all work just fine. So the idea that, I don't know if it's going to work or whatever, but there's also a really good article on ESPN.com about the history of people arguing for a playoff. And like I said, it goes back to 1967. And it's just, this is like, I don't know how anybody how can you still get angry about this at this point? Like, this is how college football has operated. It's been a mess the entire time, and they're actually finally starting to kind of do things correctly, but old habits die hard, man. They can't come to a consensus easily. They can't agree on stuff easily. This stuff takes a while. But I'm 100% confident college football has always been fine. Everybody watches the games. The sport works just fine. So no, it doesn't matter how angry the media people get about it, Clark. More people watch it every year, and it makes more money every year.
Yeah. So yeah, people need to just like chill out and enjoy it. It's not the end of the world.
Yep. Totally agree. All right, Clark, anything else before we get out of here?
No, we're good.
All right. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, give us a comment, tell us where we're right, where we're wrong. I mean, I'm never wrong, but you can tell Clark why he's wrong. Yeah. And make sure you tune in next week. Everybody have a lovely day.